This is a quick video on how to upgrade your rear lower control arm bushings on your Lexus IS. I believe this will be very similar for a second gen or a third gen. Mine's a second gen 2006 IS350 rear wheel drive. These are the two bushings you'll need. These are from the RCF or GSF. This will be your driver's side part number. This will be your passenger side. You can also tell them apart by the dot being a different color. It's going to be purple on the driver's side, and then it's kind of beigey brown color on the passenger side. The other difference between them is going to be one side's going to have a flat mating surface, and then the other side it's going to have this chamfer on it. And this chamfer is going to go towards the front of the car, and then the nut is going to be on the flat side in the back. So for tools to do this, you're going to need a ratchet or an impact, 1/2 inch preferably, 14, 17, 22, and then 10 mil just for getting the skid pan out of the way. And also you're going to need a 17 mil wrench specifically, along with a torque wrench. Also, a couple more things you're going to need. A little bit of grease, pry bar. I'm going to use a little bit of blue Loctite for the main nut. I don't think it's actually technically necessary, but I usually like to use a little bit of blue Loctite and stuff that's going to be moving. Anti-seize for all the chassis bolts, and a little block of wood to help with that pry bar to help slip the bushing out without having to take anything else apart. And the torque specs are as per here. I'll go over them in a second when we go over the bushing out of the car, just so you guys can see it a little easier than me crawling on my back like most of the other videos seem to be doing. Here's kind of a closer look at the old bushing and kind of an explanation of how to design this. So this is designed to have, what's the word for it? Dynamic toe, I believe it is. So under braking, this actually shifts back and forth in here. Basically just makes it safer, but also is what wears out the inside of our tires and makes it more compliant, and overall just feels worse. So you can kind of see on mine, you got these like what it looks like weather cracks. Doesn't look that bad, right? So set her down on the table here and see that thing open up when I over back and forth. You can kind of see how bendy it is as well. Those little weather cracks are actually real deep. You can kind of see how it's designed to work. So under braking, this will actually pivot, and it'll actually toe in or toe out. It's designed like that. Whereas the new GSF guy, it's not an RR or a FIGS, mind you, but it's a lot harder durometer, and I can't get this to flex at all by hand. Whereas the original guy, it's quite easy to flex, even just flatten the table without me even sticking a bar through it. Alright, so this is the driver's side taken out, just so you guys can kind of see what we're looking at here. So the lower control arm is going to stick through here. And there's going to be this tow hook bracket as well that's actually going to get clamped in by this larger bolt here. And there's going to be two 14 mil bolts that come into here into the body. This guy's your 22. And this guy's your 17 with the nut that's going to be on top of the subframe. For torque values, to go over them kind of quickly here while we got her out of the car. These two little 14s here are both going to be 37 foot-pounds. Our big 22 mil is going to be 151 foot-pounds. Our 17 mil here with the nut on top is going to be 63 foot-pounds. And then the nut and washer, importantly, that's going to come on the underside of here. The control arm is going to stick through here. This guy is going to be 83 foot-pounds. And this guy you do not want to tighten up until you have the suspension sitting at normal ride height. There's a couple ways to do that. One way would be to set the car down on ramps, which is what I'm going to do. Don't unbolt up with the ramps on. You want to bolt up everything but torque this guy set down the ramps, then torque this guy. Or alternatively, you can use a bottle jack to jack up the front control arm by the knuckle until it's roughly at where the ride height will be. I'm going to go with the ramp approach, as I've got ramps. You don't need ramps. You can also block it up with wood, cinder block, wherever you got, they can get it up high enough so you can sneak the torque wrench in and grab this guy. And we'll transition to under the car, and I'll show you the step-by-step. All right, we are under the passenger side of the car. You can see the control arm here and the bushing we're swapping out. These are going to be your two 14 mils, 22 mil. There's also going to be a little 10 mil that holds this up in place, and there's one on the other side as well. You can drop the whole thing. I found just taking the tube out of the back's fine. And then it's the 17 mil right here, and that's the one that has a nut on top. This guy here is captive, thankfully, so you don't gotta monkey around with that. I'm gonna try to take this out all in one shot just so I can show you guys just how quick and easy it actually is to do. A lot of people in the how-to videos actually make it look harder than it really is. And I'm gonna use the impact. I'll try to get the impacting out of the way quick. So 22 mil. Corrosion on that guy. Switch over, top out the 14s. Rah. 14. 14. And the bracket comes with it. Swap over to the 17. And we're going to need a wrench for this guy. Let's see if I can get in here. Should take the camera in the way. Car intact. And this guy here is a 22 as well. I'm going to use the ratchet for that just because she's a little awkward with the impact without using one of the old windmill joints. For mine, I didn't find they're actually that crazy tight anyways. They're pretty safe from corrosion, even though this is a winter-driven car with 250K on her. Nut, washer, and now she's all loose. So what we gotta do now, we'll reposition the camera so you can see a little better. Gotta sneak in, pry bar between the subframe and this control arm right here. This is where the block of wood comes in handy. Then this guy here is gonna drop down low enough that she'll slide right out. Let's get the position right. And for this, I didn't even take the tire off, as honestly it doesn't get in the way that bad. And I'm going to stick her up in jack stands anyway, so you just get her in there and get her in right. Viola. Just gotta get her positioned properly. And she comes right out. Didn't have to take anything apart. Just took a little finagling to get her in the right shape. And for the new guy here, passenger side. So you're gonna want this tapered side. going inwards. Your dot is going to be facing outwards towards the back. This is where you're going to want just a little dash of grease. Don't need to go too crazy. Just want to lubricate up this shaft here. Try not to get any on the threads. You just want her on the shaft itself. And we're going to slide the new one on now. Flat side back, tapered side front once again. Okay. And slides right back in. And pry bar, you're no longer needed. I'm going to start by throwing in the 17 with the nut. Position the camera a little bit. There we go. This guy I'm going to use a little bit of anti-seize on her because she's exposed to the elements. Yeah, man. Well, it would help if I used the right size nut. There we go. I'm going to suck her in, but I'm not going to totally snug her up yet, so we have some wiggle room to get that bracket on. Bracket's next with the big 22 mil head. Anti-seize on that as well. And 14 mil heads. Also give her some anti-seize. Another 14. Anti-seize as well. Okay. And we're going to snug these guys up. these guys are fine to torque up while the car is in the air. This guy here, do not torque or even tighten up until she's sitting at ride height. There's a lot of other people who have done these tutorials and they tell you just to torque it in the air. That's totally wrong. What'll happen is this bushing is going to get tightened into place while suspension's at full droop, and what's going to happen is, picture that this is the rod, this is your bushing. When you let her down to ride height, it's going to want to twist like this, and it's going to be under constant tension now when it's at ride height, and it's going to cause your bushing to fail prematurely. Yeah, in the video, I'm sure the guy's like, oh, it still works for me fine. It's been 2 months. Yeah, 2 months, okay. But we're talking the original ones held up for hundreds of thousands of kilometers, and yours might hold up for like a year or two. Just do it properly. It's not hard to do. And 17. There we go. Okay, snugged up. Ow. This guy, I'm going to chuck a tiny little dab of blue Loctite on. You want to make sure you do this last because the blue Loctite's going to start to sap and cure once you put her on. And ideally, you want it not to be cured before you torque it. That's not the end of the world if it doesn't. Don't forget your washer. Put the Loctite on inside the nut. Don't need a ton of it. A little dab will do. Alright, and she's more or less all back into place. And I'll quickly go over the torque specs here again. So, your two 14 mils found right up here at the top of the bracket. There you go. These guys right here are gonna be 37 foot-pounds. Your big 22 mil head is going to be 151 foot-pounds. Your 17 mil with the nut on the top side is going to be 63 foot-pounds. And then your nut that goes to the bushing is going to be 83 foot-pounds. So at this point in time, you can go up and torque all of them except for the one going through the bushing, as earlier mentioned. What I would recommend doing to torque up that guy is you can do a couple things. You can take your wheel off, jack up carefully off the bottom of this knuckle until your knuckle's roughly at ride height. That's going to simulate where the suspension should be when you torque her up. Alternatively, you can stick some blocks underneath the tire, wood blocks, cinder blocks, or ideally ramps, which is what I'm going to do. Slide some ramps underneath the tires, and then you can set her down on that. Then you have lots of room to slide underneath and torque this guy up. And regardless of what you do, make sure to do it safely. Don't try to do any wacky stuff while you're just working underneath just with a jack. Make sure you got the jack stands in place, or if the tires are sitting on the ramps, even better. Thanks for watching.